Well, hello there. This is your Supreme Lord Commander welcoming you to the great debate. Yeah, we're going to finally get to the bottom of this. Who wins, virtual synths versus hardware synths? Actually, I'm going to give you the top 10 reasons I have why virtual synths, VSTs, are the way to go. At least for me, this is a personal opinion. And if you are a hardware synth player, I kind of envy you. If you have a whole bunch of synths to play around with, you're a lucky person. But I'm still going to tell you that VSTs are the choice for myself, and I'm going to explain why. And this could be for a lot of people out there. There might be a lot of people out there that are struggling financially and stuff like that and trying to figure out what type of setup they want to have for musical production. Well, this might help you out. And if you are a hardware synth guy, you want to argue why you think hardware synths win, please take the opportunity below to write this in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. You're more than welcome here, and I respect people that love hardware because I have a lot of guitars, so I know exactly how emotionally attached you can become to your instruments. Anyways, let's get into it. Number one obvious reason why virtual synths win is cost. I think that's a no-brainer. When you have to physically manufacture a hardware synth with all kinds of parts and pieces, and you have to pay people to do it, and then you have to ship it around, well, that makes it pretty expensive. Well, not unreasonably expensive, but it is fairly expensive these days to buy hardware synths. And in the past, you did not have the opportunity to have the type of DAWs and the type of computer power that you have in your average desktop these days. And so the tech wasn't there, but the tech is definitely here now, big time. So purchasing a hardware synth is an expensive endeavor for most part. Like, there are cheaper ones here, like the Korg. Is that the monologue or mini log here? You get that probably for about $500 or so. Maybe in Kazakhstan it'd be more expensive. And you've got classics like the ARP Odyssey and stuff like that, which you could probably pick up for $1,000 maybe or so, give or take. And yeah, they're interesting options for sure, but they're a lot more expensive. So I'm going to give you one example. I'm going to look up here, or I did look up before, the Korg Monopoly, and I'm doing this one because I actually have this both on my desktop and on my iPad, and it's an excellent VST. If you're thinking about buying it, it's one of the best out there for sure. If you see here, the average price for one of these, we're looking at about $2,500 for a decent one here. And if we go over to Korg here and we check the price for the virtual one here, at least on the iPad, $30. So you're talking, what, 100 times almost the amount? It's quite a significant difference. Now, again, must reiterate that having the actual hardware synth is an investment in itself, and that could increase in value, and you could actually sell it in 5-10 years and maybe make money off it, or even break even, which would mean you would have that hardware synth for many years and all that. And it'd be awesome. You make all this music, you'd fall in love with it, and maybe someday you need to make some money, you sell it off, and it's a good investment. And that can't be argued, really. But how many people have $2,500 to just plop down on any old synth, especially when you can get the virtual equivalent to it for a fraction of the price? Now, number two. Let's get into space here. Synth setups here. I put in a search here for synths. This is, it's pretty cool stuff. I can see you feel like you're on the Enterprise or something. You got a whole setup like this, and I don't have anything nearly as elaborate as this with my setup, but that's all done by purpose because, of course, I'm all into workflow and being able to produce as much music as possible and being able to find the sounds as quickly as possible so that I can keep my creative flow going. And I'm not saying that this way doesn't work. In fact, if you operate in this, or this is the way that you came up, chances are it works really well for you, and therefore you should stick with it. But for most of us, this is a very expensive endeavor, and it requires a lot. You see some of these other ones here. I'm trying to bring this in a little bit better. I mean, it would be really cool to have all these synths, right? They'd be really cool, but also when you think about playing them, most of the time when we're talking about virtual synths, we're using things like MIDI controllers here. So these are MIDI controllers. I have this one, the Novation Launch Key here. I have the first generation of it. So that's my main sort of keyboard, and the keys are really good. I mean, it feels great. 49 keys, pretty much all you need when you're doing synthesizer type stuff, because you can quickly move it up and down the scale sort of thing. So yeah, these are your sort of MIDI controllers. So if you do have a computer, you're still going to need a MIDI controller to be able to do a lot. Well, you actually technically you don't, because you can click on your keyboard and you can do the sounds like that. So, but generally this is going to make your music more fun to play, and it's going to help people that know piano and stuff like that be able to come in right away. So even comparatively, most of these MIDI controllers are much cheaper than their, the equivalent sort of synthesizers. So we go to synthesizers here, and you got the Korg Prologue, which is, I think, has come out or is coming out really soon. It looks super awesome. I'd love to have one, but $2,000, folks. The Mini Moog Model D analog synthesizer, it looks like an amazing synth. $3,500, folks. Now, if you buy a MIDI controller, I have, as I told you, I have the Novation launch key there that I showed before, the bigger one, the 49 version of this. It cost me about $200. $200, and you've got your keyboard. Is it the greatest keyboard ever? No. Is it equivalent to most of the hardware synth keyboarders? Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar. So it's not like hardware synths focus massively on putting the best keyboards, unless you're buying a much better brand or a much higher, like a Waldorf or a Korg or something like that. Generally, the keys are not all that big of, they're not, it's not like they go through incredible, trying to get that piano sort of feel to it. Although some of them do, but that's something to keep in mind. So when you think about having a MIDI controller, and say like this Novation launch key right here, you have a MIDI controller, you've got your drum pads, you've got some control here over your settings, your parameters. You can quickly move up and down the octave, and you can move through. I mean, it's just a basic, very simple sort of, and these things get a little bit better every time they release them. I think this is the newer version. This actually is very similar to the one that I have. I just have 49 keys instead of 61. So you got your modulation wheel here in your pitch bend. And yeah, I mean, it's not, this doesn't make any, this is like a paperweight without being hooked up to the computer. You can't make any music whatsoever. You could bang it on all day, nothing will come out. But the minute you hook it up to a computer and you load a virtual synth, you load it into your, hook it up to your DAW, then the sky's the limit. And nobody's really going to care when they hear your music, whether you did it on, a grand piano Steinway, or you did it on a Waldorf sort of synthesizer, or a Moog or something like that, or you did it on your DAW software. Nobody's going to care. The only people that would possibly care and be able to notice would be the people that play those types of instruments on a daily basis. And they might be able to pick it up, but that's another thing to keep in mind. So, yeah. The cost, obviously, the space that it takes up. So when we think about the space here, this takes up a lot of space if you've got a setup like this. And it looks awesome, and boy, oh boy, would it be fun as hell to get in here and play around with all these. But it also is very cumbersome. You got to plug in all these things. You have to make sure they're all attached. And then, of course, you've got the problems coming up with, finding the right sound, and these things are never 100% accurate, whereas your computer can be a lot more accurate. So those will come in a bit later. Now, again, this deals with convenience as well, which is my number 3 reason for picking VSTs. It's much more convenient when you want to set something up. When you've got a VST setup as compared to a hardware setup, which means, like, say you just have your basic MIDI sort of keyboard or operator, and you can just have your computer and instantly go into your computer and find what you want, whatever sound that you want, and then get that up and running really quick. Well, that's way more convenient than being in a situation where you have to, like, make sure it's all hooked up and everything is connected well, and and then finding the sound that you want. So VSTs are way more convenient. And I'm going to show a little bit about how VSTs are extremely convenient in a second here. So another thing is ease of use. these things can be pretty complicated, some of these synthesizers. You have to learn how, all the different sounds interact with each other. You may be somebody who doesn't really want to spend a lot of time on synths and learning the ins and outs and all the functions of the buttons and the dials and all that, because a typical synth has so much to it. So if you think about modular synths, for instance, like this is an example here, and I can put in a search here just to put modular, because they get pretty crazy when you take a look at them. And again, these are awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to tell you that it isn't cool as fuck to have a modular synth, but look at this. Look at this. I would be completely lost. I would be spending half my day just trying to figure out what's going on and what sound, and I could spend 30 seconds finding an awesome virtual synth to start creating with. Time is money, right? And when it comes to music production, workflow is everything. Workflow is everything. It really is, because if your workflow is fast and smooth and you can keep your idea going where that creativity is going in your mind and you're feeling the music, if you have to stop and then hook up a whole new device or move around a whole bunch of wires, well, that gets pretty complicated. Now, some people are extremely skilled at handling these things, and that is an art in itself and can definitely be worthy of some appreciation, but most of us don't have the time or the wherewithal or even the space to be able to accommodate this stuff. Look at the size of this setup. Super cool nonetheless, and it's all analog, so that makes it, special. But at the end of the day, that's a lot of money, and that takes a lot of room. I mean, we're talking here a huge room to just be able to house all these modular synths, and God knows what else he's got set up here. All right, so that makes it very complicated, and that brings us to reason number five, which is the ease of programming virtual synths. Virtual synths are much easier to deal with. I'm going to bring up my, what do I got here? I got Ableton Live 10, which I'm absolutely loving, by the way. In case you're on the fence about purchasing Ableton Live 10 or you're upgrading, I would highly recommend it. It's been really awesome, and especially the wave synths is really amazing on it. But as you see here, I got a relatively large project in the works here with I got 9 tracks going, and it can get. I mean, is this complicated compared to this? Just think about that. If you're producing music, how long would it take this guy to come up with a song compared to how long it would take me to come up with something really epic, really quick, using like an unlimited amount of synthesizers, or as many as I have in my collection. I happen to have quite a few, and I'm able to put together something really quick, really awesome. And all the synths that I'm using have so much difference in their character. The virtual synths themselves here, I'll see if I can bring up Falcon here for a second, which is one of the major, or that's actually, that's not Falcon, that's Hybrid here. Falcon, we'll bring up Falcon here and show you, yeah, this is a good example of how easy it is to move around in your average DAW. All right, so if you're familiar with UVI, I'm a big UVI guy. I love their synths, and they produce all kinds of classic synths, and they're so good at emulating the sounds of classic synths, nailing them, and even making them sound better. And we'll get into that in a little bit with dealing with how good these synths can sound. But the fact that you can move around so easily within your setup, the fact that you can just quickly choose a completely different setup or a completely different instrument, that will change everything right away. So I can go over here on my Falcon and pick out a different bass if I want to switch my instrument, or pick out a bell, or throw in some effects. I don't have to monkey around with anything if I don't want to. It's all instantly loaded. But once I load the program, I can get in and mess around to my heart's content and go into all the different filters and different modes, and and then add on something like an amazing synth like Falcon. You can add as many effects as you want. So as you see here, all on this particular track, I have Thorus, I have Spark Verb here, I have all these different filters on it, and it's so easy to take them. I can just go over here and go through my effects and find out whatever effects I want to throw on top, or I can go into Ableton Live itself and just choose effects here on my side here. I can go, and I'm going to try to bring this over for folks to see. I can just go to my audio effects and pick out a rack or throw a whole bunch of things. Just click, 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 you know, double click, and you've opened it up, and you can get into the settings really quickly and be able to mess around to your heart's content. And the speed that you can do this speed that you can quickly change your sound or manipulate your sound it's unparalleled. You cannot do that with hardware synths, not nearly as quickly. And it doesn't matter how skilled you are, you're still going to run into that all the time. So to get a really good DAW like Ableton Live may cost you right now $700-800. That's quite a bit. But with a really good DAW like Ableton Live, you would have access to so many already. If you're, I'm talking, when I say Ableton Live 2, I'm talking about the highest version, the suite version, which is the version that I have, because I am a master, or I'm a monster sort of producer of music. I'm always producing music. So when I'm working with a DAW that's so easy to use like this, and I can just go like this, like I'll say, I'll look up my instruments. Say if I want to take the new wavetable, which is fantastic here, and I want to add something. So if I play the track here, and this is not hooked up to my, this is going to come off my crappy sort of monitor speakers, but we'll just listen here for a sec what I've got here going. You hear this? All right. Just a basic track there. Now, if I wanted to add something, I say, well, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to throw, I don't know, I could throw maybe a synth lead, and I can instantly preview the synth leads here without moving. So these are just presets here, and if I bring this over here, and I show you, you've got all your presets here. And I love presets because I'm always tinkering around with my sound, but presets make me find the sound that I want right away, like a lot quicker, so I can find something that I'm looking for, right? And maybe it's something like that, right? And I can just throw that over into my DAW here, and now I got to move my screen over, and it's already open here. And then I can set it up wherever I was, say on that track there, and I can open up the actual sort of whatchamacallit here, the wave, and bring up the wavetable, and I've got the wavetable, and I've got everything set up here, right, instantly, and I can move these things around so quickly and change my envelopes, and change the LFOs, and let's see if I can fit some of this in here and just show you like the waves here. And I can do this on my controller, which is a push 2, which is fantastic. I can go in and I can mess around so quickly with my sounds here, and I might be like, okay, I'm gonna mess around with the wavetable, and I'm gonna change the settings or the whatever table it might be. I could change the position, I could change the filter, I could put low pass or high pass or whatever, and then I can mess around with the resonance and move around these sounds so quickly and easily. I can do it with my mouse, or I can do it with the controller itself, and I can find the sound that I'm looking for much quicker. And if I find like the sound isn't working, I can just instantly click on something else, and I've instantly got it loaded. There's no messing around with all these cables. There's no like spending half an hour trying to find the sound that you're looking for. And I gotta say this for myself. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say that I produce a shitload of music, and the one thing that I don't like to waste time is trying to find the sound that I'm looking for, because I can always go back, and which I always do when I'm producing my music, and tinker around with that sound to my heart's content. And maybe if I got 10 minutes to say, hey, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to try all these different things, I'm going to mess around with all these different things or settings, or I can put in some more audio effects. I can go over here and say I'll throw in an echo, right? This is their new echo sort of thing, and it instantly changes everything. and yet it's so easy to use, and it's all in, like, unfortunately I can't show you everything, or maybe I can, because I have a certain setting here for my eyes on my computer to be able to see it. But you can get an idea of how quick it is. I mean, how quick it is just to take things, throw extra effects on, just to your heart's content. With Ableton Live, you can throw on a million different effects. I mean, I don't even know if there's a limit to it. And if you've got a strong computer, that's pretty powerful, or at least up to today's standards, you're going to be able to mess around to your heart's content. You can come in here and mess around with equalizers, and you can do this on your DAW controller if you don't want to look at your screen at all, which is normally how I do it. I'm using keyboards, and I'm using my push, and I'm using some other functions. I don't even have to look at the screen. I can actually do this with my MIDI controller. I can't even begin to tell you how amazing that is and how quick it is for your work production. So it really makes a huge, huge difference when you have that. So when we think about it, where I was talking about the problems with hardware synths, I mean, hardware synths are from a different era, and people, before you had computers and you could replicate the sound. And when people will talk about, whether hardware synths and virtual synths sound better, it's beyond folly. There's really no difference. In fact, if anything, VSTs will sound better because they're more precise. Instead of having dials, everything is computerized, so you can absolutely nail. Now, I'm not saying that there's, like when you have a hardware synth and you have it set up and you're, it's like a Moog or something like that, you're messing around with it, you're going to blow yourself away for sure, and potentially blow anybody else who's there witnessing it, or anybody else that's going to hear your creations with it, for sure. But I guarantee you 99.9999% of people out there, if you were to give them a blind sort of hearing test on virtual synths versus hardware synths, they would not know the difference. In fact, many times probably the VST would even win in terms of what sounds better. Now, I'm not here to debate that in particular because, as I said, being a guitarist and all that, understanding what it's like to have physical instruments and how awesome they can be, I totally understand that point of view. But think of the difficulty of trying to get the sounds that you're looking for with a setup like that. Maybe that's an extreme setup, but you see a lot of people have these very elaborate setups with these, and these are very expensive. Like, very expensive. I know I went to look to see what a Model 15 cost. The Moog Model 15 is $10,000, and people still buy them. I'm not saying that's a bad investment at all. I'm just saying that I'm so much quicker. If I had to do it this way, I'd be lucky to chug out one song a week, whereas I can chug out dozens of songs just doing it through a DAW and using VSTs. And that is the absolute truth, at least from my personal perspective. So they're much easier to program, and I get to number 6, which is the presets that are available on most of these synths are incredible. The Korg Monopoly is a great example. If you have this synth, or you have some of these virtual synths, you can get in there and instantly dial up any sort of, like when it comes to Korg, for instance, and I use Korg Gadget quite a bit. It's my main tool for sort of mobile sort of production, which I do a lot, especially in the summertime. The ease of bringing up these programs and being able to find exactly whatever sound you're looking for, like I said here before when I was going for the new wavetable here and Ableton Live, which is one of their new instruments that they put in here. And as you see, I mean, like, what sound are you looking for? Like, you can't do that with a hardware synth. You can't say to a hardware synth, play something, ambient involving for me because, I want to check it out. But with one of these, you can instantly now have to close all the other synths that I had put out there to get the sound, but or the settings that I have, because it's not coming through here. But hang on a second here. I'll just get rid of that one. Hang on. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to open up another one here and show you how easy and quick it is to set something up. So right away, it's instantly set up. I can instantly go in and play chords and play arrangements, and I can mess around with the shapes so easily. It's just a breeze to do this. Change the saw. change the position on the saw, change the filter type, change the frequency. And I'm doing this with my push right now. And this is how I would normally do it. I could adjust the mod time. You know, there's no end to the possibilities of what you can do. And it's so quick. It's right away. And once your brain starts to work within it, once you understand where the buttons are, where, you know, what to click on, where to find what you're looking for, how to get around in a DAW, how to get your sounds, how to add your instruments, your effects, everything else, it starts to become easier and easier and easier. And instead of wasting lots of time, which I'm sure it happens inevitably with lots of musicians, you know, trying to figure out what sound you're looking for, and maybe after an hour or so you've got the sound that you're looking for out of one synthesizer. Maybe it takes you less time. Maybe you can do it in 5 minutes and you come up with something really cool, and then you go over to your other synth, I would imagine, and then you would start playing something to accompany that. But it's still, I mean, and then you have to make sure they're all hooked up, and then, you know, you have filters on them. How does it work? Are you using a DAW? You know, it just becomes extremely complex. And what I'm saying basically is I would be up shit's creek without a paddle if I had to mess around with this stuff. Now, I come from virtual synth. I never had hardware synths, so I don't have the experience that a lot of hardware synths players would have, but I have a shitload of experience playing VSTs, and that's why I'm making this video and trying to inform people that you could save a lot of money and time and be way more productive if you're using virtual synths. That doesn't mean hardware synths are garbage. They're awesome, they're amazing, and they're so cool, and if that's your thing, if that's what floats your boat, then by all means. But for the average music producer, the average... And I'll tell you this too, a lot of professional producers will tell you the same thing. They'll say it doesn't matter, and they'll more often than not, in you know, popular music and music production, they'll use VSTs over hardware synths just because of the ease of using it. So yeah, we got all that, and then that's number 6. I said for presets, being able to find the sound that you want really quickly, how easy it is to tinker around with it, load something else if you don't like it, load something else if that doesn't work, you know, load something else. Is that what you're looking for? Is this what, and this is just ambient involving, you know, you can go into brass, you know, maybe you'll find, right? Maybe you don't like that wavetable and you want to switch it up. Maybe you want to switch up your position on the wavetable. Maybe you want to switch your filter, you know, what type of filter and the frequency that you're going to be using it at. You know, it's just no end. And then you want to throw some effects on. Yeah, how about I don't know, I can throw the echo, I can throw, you know, EQ8, EQ3, I can put some compressors, loopers, you know, I mean, it's just click, double click, and it's there already, sort of thing. Although I changed the filter on this, so, but yeah, where was I? I'm trying to get this back here. Wavetable, and I'll put that filter back just so you can hear it. And I just put a chorus on there, and I can mess around with the chorus instantly. And if I don't like it, I just throw it away, get rid of it. It's gone. There's no, and you're not wasting time trying to find the sound that you're looking for. You're finding the sound, and you're keeping yourself in the groove of the music that you're trying to create, the music, the piece of production that you're trying to achieve, sort of thing. So that just makes it amazing. Now, so another thing too is electricity, obviously. Depending where you are, if you're in some place like California, your electricity bills can get pretty high. Up here in Kanakistan, of course, in the wintertime, electricity can get very expensive because you're paying for heating and stuff like this. And you could just imagine that setups like this take up a lot of electricity. It's a more of a minor thing on the scale of it, but nonetheless, you know, and that's a lot of power cords. That's a lot of, you know, demand on your electrical system. There's a lot of problems that could arise when you have a setup like this, and yeah, so that can be another thing. Another thing, okay, so what is one of the best reasons that VSTs are better than hardware synths? Portability. Let's just think about it. There's not too many portable synths. You've got the OP1, so I can put in I'm gonna get my keyboard here. Hang on, it's running away with me. Portable synth. Delete. All right, so you do have portable synths. You have like the OP1, which is pretty cool. This is not a portable synth. This is a MIDI controller. It's useless without a computer. Um, so they do exist, these portable synths. There's one like this. This is the Guitaria or something. Looks kind of cool, a bit like the OP1. Um, Now compare an OP1 to an iPad, and it's like comparing a river to the cosmos. I mean, in terms of what you can get. No offense to the OP1. It's a really cool piece of tech and a lot of fun to use. But boy, oh boy, when you think of what an iPad can do, and an iPad can sound every bit as good as any hardware synth or any VST synth on a desktop computer or a laptop. Because iPads right now are extremely powerful. You see stuff like this, these powerful wave synths that you can get on your iPad. Korg has been releasing a ton of awesome ones. And again, it's the same thing, the convenience of being able to click on, I think this is Yonak, right? Yonak, this is the Magellan. This is an amazing synth. Absolutely fantastic. I wish I could play it out right for you right now, but again, the ease of coming in here, clicking on here, finding, you know, what sound you're looking for. Are you looking for say bass? Are you looking for a lead? Are you looking for like a saw? Are you looking for, you know, something atmospheric or something like that? You just click on here, find a preview, get in there, and then you can start messing around with these things. You can do it with your fingers really easily. I mean, it's not quite as good, obviously, as having the dials themselves, but I mean, it costs a literal fraction of the cost if you're going to go out and buy the actual hardware synth. And then these on the iPad, you can put these through things like Beatmaker. Obviously, Beatmaker 3, if people seen some of my other videos, I use Beatmaker 3. I use Cubasis a lot. And then, of course, Korg Gadget. So I'll put Korg, one of my favorite, which is Korg Gadget, which really got me into Korg Gadget. And I think it's coming out for synths. I'll just put that out. You see the types of synths that are available on a program like Korg Gadget, where you just have gazillions. I mean, these aren't real synths. They make them look real, but they play like real synths. So, and they're drum machines, and they're all these different things. Here's a better sort of view of some of what's available on the Korg. Like the ARP Odyssey, which is amazing for leads and stuff like that. You have, you know, classical sort of grand piano type synths. You have beat slicers and stuff like that, atmospheric, you know, it's just, and then you have these amazing drum machines like the Gladstone here, which is probably my favorite drum machine VST that exists right now, because it recreates wood drums so well, percussions and stuff like that. And these are relatively cheap. If you get them when they're on sale, maybe 15, 20 bucks at most, you know, at normal price, maybe 30 bucks or so. But I mean, that's way, 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 way cheaper than actual physical synths. So the portability of being able to carry around, and I can tell you, you can bring an iPad anywhere. You could be doing music on the bus. And I've done it many times, on the subway, on a long road trip. If you're not driving, you could, you know, at the airports, at the doctor's office, and you just pull it out, and you could be right where you left off. And, you know, maybe you only have 5 minutes to work on something, but guaranteed, if you have something that's right there, it's so easy to access, and you can just jump to it right away. And there's no, like, I have to hook up all these cables or find the sound that I had last time, and that might take you 5 minutes just to find that sound. If you're not, you know, if you don't know what you're doing so well, or if, you know, it's complicated or whatever. And then that's why virtual synths just win, because you're focused on your music. You're not wasting time. So yeah, portability is a huge thing. I put for number 9 accuracy, because virtual synths tend to be more precise than hardware synths, and that's for the simple reason that you know, hardware synths have dials, and, you know, you never know 100% what your setting is. It's all just you're guesstimating sometimes. Now, that could work really well, but with a virtual synth, you can get in there and find out exactly what your settings are and mess around with them to your heart's content. And you can precisely set everything, you know, to the very digit that you want. And so it is more precise. It's more technically precise than hardware synths. Doesn't mean it's necessarily better, but, it's just another thing. And then for the last but definitely not least, and it's the thing that I've been talking about the whole time, really, or the most important thing, which is workflow. You hear this expression throughout everywhere in the music community, especially when it comes to hip-hop production and stuff like that, electric dance music and whatever else that people are making. How quick can you put together a song? Or how is your flow going? Do you sit down for half an hour and do you fart around and not find what you're looking for, and then maybe come back an hour or two later or the next day, maybe find something, and then, if that's what's happening to you, you're not in a good place musically, I'll tell you that. Because I can sit down and within 5 minutes I can have a beat and I can have a basic sort of chord progression or whatever working for me really quickly. And that is something I'm trying to get through to folks out there that are trying to get into music production and trying to do, increase their ability to produce, to actually make music. If you waste time, if every time you sit down with your synthesizer and you're spending 5, 10, 20 minutes trying to find a sound just to start with, and maybe that's the sound that you're looking for. Maybe you've lucked out, you found this incredible sound and you're going to use it at some point and it's going to blow people away. But, more often than not, you're just wasting a lot of time messing around. Now, obviously, people that play hardware synths, the more you mess around, the quicker you get at it, the faster you get to know where everything is, and so that's going to work. And to reiterate, there was a time and a place where, hardware synths ruled the roost kind of thing, and having the skill to be able to take one of these and monkey around with it and mess around with it and find something really quickly is an art in itself. So, that is really, really cool. But for most of us, it's, you might, somebody might plot me in front of this thing, and I might spend half an hour going, wow, ooh, oh, wow, oh, yeah, that's cool, but I may not make anything. And then if I do find a sound that I'm looking for, I might be like, okay, I found that sound. Now I want to add something else, and then does that mean you got to go over to a new setup, or does that mean you have to record what you've just recorded and then mess around with all the dials to find another sound that you can layer on top of that sound? Just think about it. That's a lot of work. Or can you just quickly jump into whatever you're doing and say, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. That instrument, yeah, maybe I'll change that. Maybe I don't want a brass instrument. Maybe I'll pick a guitar or something like this. Piano sitar, right? Whatever floats your boat. The fact that you could do that so quickly with the click of a button or click of a mouse and instantly change whatever you're doing. And then you can go back. If you mess it up, you can instantly say, well, I'll just load this, whatever it was before. I'll undo in my settings on my DAW, and you're instantly back to where you were before. So there's what I find, and I want to say another thing that people that push hardware synths. So one thing that people will say about hardware synths, and people that are really into them and think that they are, the way to go sort of thing if you really want to produce serious music, they'll say things like, well, if you're using a computer, you're going to get distracted. Because, you got Facebook and you got all these different things that will pop up, and, you're going to just call, I'm going to click, my email's coming in, whatever. That should never be a problem. I mean, if that's a problem with you, you're probably not cut to be a musician. And you probably should be doing something else. If you cannot get passionate about what you're into, if you cannot lose yourself, if the computer itself is going to distract you from creating the music, well then why are you creating music in the first place? Now, sometimes when I'm out and I'm producing music and I'm using my iPad, I'm in some beautiful setting. Maybe I'm watching the sunset, or I'm up on a mountain or something like that, and I'm being influenced by the beauty around me and the fact that I can use virtual synths at that, virtually anywhere, really. Let's be honest. I mean, you can be out in the country. You can be anywhere. You don't even need to be on the internet at all. Of course, you could, You could be in the middle of nowhere. As long as you've got power and you've got access to your iPad or your laptop, you're making music, or you could be making music. So I don't buy that, it's a distraction. Everything's a distraction. Everything is a distraction if you let it be. If you're focused on what you're producing, if your passion is music and the production of music, then no computer should be able to distract you from that. So don't take the mindset that, I'm going to buy hardware synths because every time I go on a computer I get distracted. Next thing you know, I'm goofing off. Well, that's your fault. That's not the computer's fault. It has nothing to do with it. It doesn't mean that the hardware synths are better or you're going to produce more music. You might, but it doesn't mean that. So what I'm trying to say to you is don't buy into the notion that you're going to produce better music or more music because you're not going to be distracted. Because if you're distracted, then you're probably not a musician anyways. You're probably, just doing it for a hobby sort of thing. So that's what I would say to folks out there. Don't buy into those arguments that, it's better to take yourself completely away from all your distractions. Well, yeah, that to a certain extent. But if those distractions are so much of a problem, then there's something else that's not working. Because I have no problem sitting in front of a computer for hours creating music and not being distracted by anything. I might take 5-10 minutes off here and there, but I'm not distracted. So neither should you be. So yeah, those are my top 10 reasons. Some of the top 10, might have been things that were similar to each other when I say convenience and ease of use and stuff like that. But really, the reasons why, basically in a nutshell, that VSTs are the way to go. Number one, workflow. It's much faster. It's much easier, especially once you get comfortable with a DAW, to be able to really get the sound that you're looking for. And that's what we're all looking for. Cost, obviously, is a huge factor. Nobody could raise the argument that it's more efficient or cheaper to buy hardware synths than it is to buy VSTs, because that is just laughable. The convenience of use, the ease of use of using a virtual synth, especially within these DAWs, these incredible DAWs like Ableton Live 10, which I haven't done a video on yet, but I'll say Ableton Live 10 is amazing. I absolutely love it. And I think they nailed it, so highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody that owns Ableton Live 9. It's a good time to upgrade before they raise the price. Take advantage of it because it's an excellent, just for the wavetable alone, it's almost worth the price of admission. So yeah, the ease of being able to find exactly what you want, using plugins, being able to click on a plugin instantly. Think of how hard that is with real synths, many which don't have any plugins. Modular synths don't have that shit. So you modular synths, you got to be plugging in all these things and twisting all these dials. And then if you come in and you want to change your sound, well, you got to change everything anyways. So, you're going to spend so much time trying to find the sound that maybe you're looking for, that maybe you would spend a fraction of that time. So if you find the sound that you're looking for within, say, a minute or two, as opposed to 20-30 minutes, my word, imagine how much more productive you will be with your creations, with your music. So obviously, that the fact that you can couple it with all types of effects like I am doing here with Ableton Live, the fact that I can just throw on any sort of effect that I want or that I have here, and just constantly mess with my sound. I mean, it's just amazing what you can do. I was clicking on effects here. These are some of the effects that you get in Ableton Live 10, and just being able to find what you're looking for. And hey, if you make a mistake, no problem. You just dump it. You get rid of it, and you just load something else. And it's lickety-split so quick. So, portability, obviously, being able to carry things around, there's just so many reasons. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from it. I hope that if you're a music production person or a synth player, that you'll sub the channel and stick around, because I have massive amounts of material that's going to be coming out. I'm also going to be doing live sessions, teaching people how to use Ableton Live 10, how to improve their skills in music production, how to program things, and how to just be a much better musician. And I've already done a lot of this work. So yeah, make sure you're subbed to the channel and give me a thumbs up, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for dropping by. Talk to you later.